In this tutorial, we're going to work on Illustrator Classroom in a Book, Chapter 2, which is all about how to select and move around different types of items. And we're going to do it by creating this really cute snowman today. So let's go ahead and do a File and Open and see what we're creating. I've already downloaded all my assets to my desktop. I've got one big folder. Within my folder, I've got my lessons. This is Lesson 2. And it's telling me to look at the end one. So let's look at the end. The end shows us how we are going to actually end up putting all these elements together to create the snowman. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. Let's do a File, Open, and let's grab that Start file. And before we get started, let's do a File, Save As, and let's name it Snowman, and .ai, which is Adobe Illustrator file, and save. And I already have one, so I'm going to say yes. Go ahead and replace it. If you get this Illustrator options window, go ahead and say yes. Nothing you need to change there, so you're okay. So one of the things we're going to work on is using the selection tool. There's a big difference between the selection tool and the direct selection tool, so we're going to take a peek at that. So as you've noticed before, we in Illustrator have the option of working with artboards, which is having basically multiple screens or piece of paper, canvases to work on at a single time. Whereas Photoshop only gives us one, InDesign gives us one big document. This one actually you can create your envelope, your business card, many different elements on multiple artboards within an Illustrator file. So let's go ahead and take a peek. We're going to zoom in first. So I'm going to grab my zoom tool. And if you notice, if you drag it from left to right, you can zoom in a certain amount. You can also do Control minus, zoom out. You can use your space bar and hold your space bar, move your mouse, and you can use your hand at the same time. You can use your plus to zoom in. There's quite a few different ways to play with zooming. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got. If I click on just the one element, I'm going to get what's called a bounding box, which shows me how the anchors and the paths are put together in order to create this element. So if I hold this, I have this one selected, I hit Shift and hold and grab the next one, I can actually Shift grab and select both of those at one time. You'll notice if you grab the center of your different objects, you can actually move them a lot easier without having to switch to another tool, which makes it pretty nice. So I want to go back to where I started. I want to make no changes. I'm going to go back to File and Revert, which is also F12. You're going to get a note and you say yes, which will take us back to exactly where we started when this lesson started. So I'm going to go ahead and do View, Fit Artboard in Window, which means I want to take a peek at this one. So let's take a peek at a few other things. I'm going to take my selection tool and I can select just the green. I'm going to zoom in so I can see the green a little bit better. Now you'll notice I now have a path and I have what's called anchor points. Each of my anchor points is now blue, which means if I change them, they will all change together. Excuse me. So what else can we do? What if I only want to change one corner? That's where direct selection comes into handy. So I'm going to go ahead, click on that anchor with my direct selection tool. Notice that it is blue and the rest are white. Now I can take and pull just that one corner and make it different. I can go over here to my red with my direct selection and do the same thing. So I can do quite a few different things with my direct selection tool that I couldn't necessarily do with just my selection. If I just do it with my selection, I'm going to actually change the entire box at once, which I totally don't want. Alright, rather than revert, I'm just doing Control Z to undo until we're back to where we started. Alright, so let's create some selections with a marquee. Let's go back up to our eyeballs and see what else we can do. With our selection tool, we can select multiple objects at one time. Note, you do not have to go completely around them. You can just, as long as you're touching them, it will grab those paths. And it will move them together. So I can, grab that center, move them around together. If I switch to my direct selection tool, I'm going to get these different anchor points and it'll move them together. And I can also take and drag. Now because I grabbed that anchor point, it's changing that one. So we've got a few different options. There are ways to move, here we go, so that you can change all the shapes at one point into one thing. I really don't need it to be that, so I'm going to do a Control minus and return my circles back to normal. Alright, so what's another way of selecting things? Maybe I want to select all the green. So I can go ahead, grab my magic wand, and I'm going to say here, click on green. And notice now, everything that on my page that was green is now selected. So I didn't have to go through and make a tedious way of coming up with each one. I'm going to do a Control minus so I don't have that selected. Let's go ahead and take a peek at our snowman side. So let's go to View. We can do Fit Artboard in Window. We can grab our hand, we can move it across that way. There's a few different ways we can get around. So one of the first things we want to do is select the snowman head. So let's go ahead and grab the snowman head, and you'll notice what's happening is I can't make a selection. I keep grabbing that background instead. There's no good way for me to grab his face. So I need to find a way to fix that. So I'm going to Control minus till I get back. What I'm going to do is with it selected, I'm going to go to Object. I'm going to lock the selection, which now means I can draw that marquee around what I want to change and not have to grab that background as well, which is a really nice thing. So now, what if I only want to, I don't want to grab all these paths. I can go through and click. If I hit Shift, it will remove those paths from our image. So I just took away his nose and his hat, and you say, oh, nothing happened. We have to actually look at it. We go Object, Hide, Selection, and you'll notice the paths that were selected are now hidden. So let's do Undo, Control Z. Alright, so how do we select similar objects? We played with the magic wand already. There's some other ways to do it as well. So let's go ahead and do a View, Fit Artboard, Fit All in Window, so we can see them both side by side. So what else can we do? Let's do a Select Same command. So with our selection tool, we're going to click on our blue, and we want to make sure that we get all the blue things. So we're going to go to Select, and we want Same, and look at all the different things that you can tell it to select. This time we want to do Fill Color. So it's going to collect those two. If you had a blue dot with a red stroke, you could specify it for that as well. So it's a nice way to be able to play with things all at the same time. So let's go ahead and select one of these shapes down here, one of the red ones, and let's go Select, Same, and let's do Stroke Color this time. Remember, stroke is the outline. And look how it picks up all the different pieces of that scarf. So there's quite a few ways to make selections, put things together, because you'll notice you have a lot of little tiny pieces. So let's go ahead and create a group out of this scarf. Let's go to Select, and we want Save Selection down here. And it's going to say, okay, what do you want to call it? Let's call it Scarf. And we'll say OK. So now, when we want to, we can just hit Scarf, and it'll grab all those pieces for us at once. So now we need to go ahead and deselect. You can go to Select, Deselect, or you can do the Control-Shift-A is a shortcut. Alright, so how do we select things like these eyeballs? There's got to be an easier way. So let's go to Object, and just do Show All. I don't have anything selected. Object. Oh, Unlock All. We forgot to do that earlier. Object. I don't see Show All. Show All is not an option. probably because we unhid it earlier. So if you had something hidden, so let's go Object, Hide, Selection. All right, now we can do Object, Show All. There we go. So we shouldn't have undone that earlier, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and go up to View, and we want Outline. View Outline is basically going to give us the coloring book version of what this element looks like. So with Outline, we can actually select different parts that we may not be able to grab otherwise. So we want to go ahead and grab the eyeballs. So we're going to grab our selection tool, and we're going to click in the blank area of the eye shape, and we're going to grab that path. So now we need to make sure we get the other one. So we can do Shift and click and get another path. We can do Selection and do a marquee around and get both the paths that way. You can go ahead, we can use our arrow keys. We can move them up or down, side to side, with those arrow keys. Now, to get it back, View and GPU Preview, or you can do the preview on CPU, either one. So now we have it back, and we have our eyeballs selected. So if you wanted to, you could go through and change the color. You could do a lot of different things, but we couldn't do it without selecting the outlines. So let's play a little bit with how to align some objects, because it's a real pain to try and eyeball this and make it work. So let's go ahead and go Select and look down here. Now we have our scarf. Because we created that selection earlier, we can create things all at one time. Let's go ahead and take a look at what our options are here. I'm going to do a Control+ so we can see a little bit more. On our Properties panel over here, depending on what we have, it's going to change. So for now, we have one called Align. And we want to align them all to the bottom. So we're going to go over here to this last one, Vertical Align Bottom. And mine is set to do something else, because I had it set to do it to artwork, to the, here, I need to do it to the selection. So let me undo. I was playing with this earlier. So make sure it's set to selection, not the artboard. If you do it to the artboard, it's going to go to the bottom of the page. So let's try that, vertical align bottom. And now all of our pieces are equal at the bottom, which made it a lot nicer. We could just do some random stuff and make it nice. All right, let's do Edit and Undo Align. So we'll put it back to our kind of chaos. We can also align to what's called a key object. So we can decide this one right here, this red one, is the one that we think is in the right place. We want everything to align to it. So we create what's called the key object. So our key object now has a dark blue line around it. So we want to hit the vertical align top so that all the tops are even. So let's go over here, vertical align top, and now they're all even with that top, which is nice. We like the align functions. Use them, they'll make your life easier. Use them in InDesign as well. All right, we're going to do a Control S to save. I'm going to do a Control Shift A to deselect. So now let's go ahead and play with some anchor points. You'll notice his body down here is kind of lumpy and lopsided. Well, we're going to play with that. We're going to grab our Direct Selection tool, and we're going to play with some anchors. We're going to go ahead and go to the lower left corner point, and we're going to Shift Collect. So shift click it. I'm going to do an unzo. Deselect. Grab my selection tool and click here, and then I want to do a shift and click and grab this other anchor point as well. So I'm dealing with both of these anchor points. You see they're both blue. This one's white, and that is what we want. So you can do multiple things at a time. So we want to vertical align to the bottom. So we want this actually to come down here and get a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go here to my properties, go to my align, and do vertical align bottom, and notice how it brought it up, and now we have a nice even flat bottom for our snowman body. So let's go ahead and do Control S, save, and let's see what we can do with distributing some objects. So we made we were playing with these. We made them kind of funky. So let's go ahead and do our select scarf again. And we want to, with our regular selection tools, with our key aligned, let's go ahead and align those top again so they're nice and flat. But they're still kind of ugly and not quite right. So we can do a few different things with it. We can click the horizontal distribute center button, which is right here. Nope. We want more. There you go. Go to the more options, which is the three little dots. Distribute objects right here. And we want to come down and do vertical distribute, horizontal. Oh, it made a mistake, so we want to undo that. Let's fix it. Command Z. So what else can we do? You can play with the different types of alignment and objects and distribution. So let's go ahead and play with our different options of alignment. So vertical distribute bottom. They're a lot more even now. You can distribute them left. You can do a lot of different things with your alignment. So now it's not too bad. We kind of like it. And we've got equal space between, but it's not quite right still. So let's go edit and undo align. And what else can we do? What we really want is this scarf to actually look like a scarf. We want it to bring it all together. So with all these shapes selected, so let's grab all of our shapes and select them again. Let's do the leftmost shape. So let's click over here. And we're going to go ahead and use that as our key object. We're going to go over here to our more options right here. And we've got a few different things that we can play with still. And we want to play with, we want ensured, okay, distribute spacing right here. We want to set it to 0. And the horizontal distribute right here. And hit click. And notice how it brings them all together. So it's that under more, it's way down here, distribute spacing is what's going to take that spacing out. And that's what we want. So let's go do a Control S for save and a Control Shift A to deselect. So we now have a nice little scarf going. So now we want to align something to the artboard itself. Let's go ahead and do a selection tool. And let's click on our snowman body and do an edit cut. So edit and cut. We're actually going to go take that off and put it on the other one. We're going to go to our previous artboard, which you can do right down here. And do your previous artboard. Let's do edit and paste. And now we have our body, but it came in right in the middle, which is kind of a pain. So what can we do? We can play with align to fix it. So let's go to Window and Align and grab that panel. And as we talked about in Lesson 1, you can dock those panels so you don't have to go back up and grab them all the time. Let's go ahead and for Align this time, we want to go ahead and do more options. So go to your hamburger panel. I'm going to pull it up. And you can pull them off as well. So we want to grab that, grab our more options. We want to go here to click the Align to Selection button. So right here, what do we want it to align to? We want it to align to the actual artboard. So we're saying line up with the bottom. We're then going to go to our horizontal Align Center button, which is this guy, and hit there. So it moved it a little bit, so it's more evenly spaced in the thing, but it didn't go to the artboard yet. So we need to actually tell it to go to the vertical bottom. So let's go here, align to vertical bottom. Oh, and now we have our object at the very bottom of the artboard. Yes, you could drag it, but that's not what we're doing today. So let's do a Control S to save, Shift Control deselect. Let's work with a few groups now. And you can close these menus. I'm going to use my arrow key, pop back over. We're going to go ahead and select our scarf again. So let's go to select and scarf. And notice it's grabbing it as the condensed version that we created before. So if we look at our quick actions over on the properties panel, it's going to depend on what you're doing. This time we want to group it, which means we want you to treat this item as one single piece, not as 5 individual items. So let's go ahead and take that group. I'm going to do a view, fit all in window, and I'm going to take my selection tool and notice how it's moving as a single group. And I've got my smart guides on, which is what's popping up those magenta lines. And it's kind of helping me to see where things are. So I'm going to put it right here on his neck. And yeah, I know it's in the wrong place. We're going to work on that in a little bit. So let's do Control-Shift-A to deselect that one. So you sometimes will end up in what's called isolation mode. You're going to think that you have messed up, but you're actually there on purpose. So let's grab your selection tool. Let's click on the snowman's hat. Let's go ahead and double click on the band in the hat, and now we're in isolation mode. You'll notice that it got kind of grayed out, the opacity changed, and you got these little notes right up here, which means we are going to work on just these elements in this group. So I may decide I don't like the red. I want the red to actually be kind of a green. So I'm going to go to my fill. I'm going to make sure my swatches are showing. And I'm going to go ahead and grab some color of green for the ribbon of his scarf. When we're happy with it, we can go ahead and hit escape. It'll close the panel, it'll close isolation mode, and now we have a green hat, which we didn't have before. So let's go ahead and deselect and exit that. So now we've got a pretty good looking hat. So let's create what's called a nested group, which is where you have a group within a group. So let's grab the marquee and drag a square across the head and the hat. Oh, we unlocked that. So undo, object, lock, selection. All right, now I can grab my selection tool and grab the hat and the head. And we want to go over here, or we can go to the top. Let's go to object and group. So you're going to find in all the Adobe programs there's always 15 ways to do everything. And then let's go ahead and deselect. Now we can go ahead and with our selection tool, let's click on the hat. And you'll notice that now we have the head and the hat in our isolation mode because they are all one group, which we didn't have before. So let's go ahead and hit escape, just kind of show you what's going on there. So we're getting close. Next thing we've got to deal with is what's called stacking order, which is which things are on top. So let's go ahead and do a view and an outline, because we want to make it relatively easy to select things. And we want to grab the parts of the scarf. So with my selection tool, I'm going to grab a marquee and just grab the parts of the scarf. But it looks like I grabbed his body as well, so I don't want to do that. So I'm going to grab this, 3 parts of the scarf. I'm going to go to View and GPU Preview. And it's still got that one part I don't want. So let's go ahead, back in. Let's go to View, Outline, and let's hit this path here and hit Shift, and it should take it off. So, and it didn't grab what I wanted. Let's try it one more time. Alright, let's go ahead and go View, GPU Preview. So now I've got the 3 different parts of the scarf that I want to play with. So I'm going to go to Object, I'm going to go to Arrange, and Bring to Front. Now because I have the body selected, I have a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift, get rid of that body. I'm going to go to View, and let's go to Outline, and grab this part of the scarf and that part of the scarf. And notice we just got those two elements. We're not grabbing the body as well. Let's go to View, GPU Preview, and now let's go Object, and Arrange, and Bring to Front. So now we have those three different elements, but I still don't like it because my scarf is not quite right. I want these to be under. I'm going to grab that scarf once again. I'm going to go to Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. So now I have my tassels of my scarf underneath of my neck part. So I'm going to do a Control S to save, and we're doing pretty good. So next thing we need to do is, how do you select things within a stack of objects? We're going to go ahead and do a select over our eyeballs, and we're going to drag those right over to our snowman, and we're going to let go. And what happens? Well, they look clear, and we know they're not actually clear, but the problem is they are behind the eyeball, the white of the eyeball. So we need to go to Window, or Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. So now we have his two eyeballs right where they're supposed to be. Or you can do them one at a time. If you want to, you can go in, adjust those. Placement, so he doesn't look quite so creepy. Totally up to you as to what you're going to do. So this was a quick lesson on how to create and use all the different selection tools in Adobe Illustrator. To submit, make sure you package and submit to Canvas.